Today I'm going to make my famous pork egg rolls. I've been making these for a very long time, and honestly I really can't take full credit for these. This is totally, I got this recipe from, in high school, my high school sweetheart neighbor. I've been trying to think of her name and I can't think of it. But anyways, not only did she show me this recipe, but she was Asian. I don't know, I'm not sure where she was from, but she was, an immigrant. And yeah, this is another authentic ethnic recipe, I would say. And not only did she show me how to make these egg rolls, but she was a person who turned me on to like organic gardening and a lot of cool things. So she was a really neat lady. I've done a lot of this work ahead of time, and if you have any questions about some of these things, that I've already covered this in the chicken stir fry video. What I've got here is my fresh ginger. I'm using fresh ginger, so I always do like at least a 3-to-1 ratio of garlic to ginger. Now the original recipe calls for 2 cloves of garlic and 2 teaspoons of grated ginger. So this is obviously way more than 2 cloves of garlic, but I like a lot of garlic. I think I used probably 5 or 6 cloves. But if you wanted to just stick to the original recipe, it would be 2 teaspoons of grated ginger, but that was the powdered stuff, and 2 cloves of garlic. But this is how I've done it. I've got about 5 cloves of garlic and this much ginger, and I cut it up really fine in little tiny pieces with a knife. Also, what we're going to be doing, I've done this ahead of time as well. This is my celery. I run it through my little food processor to get nice little tiny chunks, and it ended up being, it's supposed to be 2 cups, but it ended up being about 4 stalks of celery. What I've also done ahead of time is the pork meat. I made a roast a while ago, and I cut it up right after the roast, and I already measured it out at that point, and it should be it should be about 1.5 cups of pork. This is pork loin, and I've cut it up. It was frozen, so after I had the roast, I made a roast, and then I immediately cut it up into nice little tiny cubes, put it in this baggie and froze it. And it's taken out to thaw. 8 green onions, which I was going to run over real quick if you don't know how to do a green onion. Napa cabbage. So you're going to need about, what was it? How much? It's like a pound? Yeah, 1 pound of Napa cabbage. So I went to the store and all they had was this giant 5-pound thing. So what I did was I just pulled off some leaves and I measured it in the scale. And we're going to treat this just like we did the bok choy. We're going to cut off this part, the green, the leafy part, and then we're going to dice up this harder part into nice, little chunks also. The other thing that's going to go in here is bean sprouts, and I didn't show this in the stir fry video, but I hope everybody realizes you do have to drain it. And how I do that, I always wash the cans. If you use canned anything, wash the can lids before you start. And then you just run through a can opener. And you just keep pressing down on the lid. See, the lid is still in there. I don't know if you can see that. And then as you do that, it'll probably get off some more water, but you're just like seeing then the water comes out of it. But you try to squeeze out, most or all of the water as much as you can. Okay, so I wanted to do a quick demo on the green onion. So green onions come like this. You got this little root thing on the end. You do want to get rid of that. I've got 3 different knives going on here. So you get rid of that little end piece. That's no good. And then if there's any that are kind of wilty, sometimes, yeah, this one's kind of wilty. I'll just pull it off. Also on the end, real wilty, get rid of it. And then this is all usable. You cut it all the way down to the very bottom and all the way down to the very top. I guess I can just do one on camera. But it's just like that. I would probably bunch them all together and do it all. And this is how I just cut up my, I'll go through it one time like this, slicing all the way down. And then I come back at it another time too. So you use the green and you use the white part, both. Now the green is a little bit more milder, and the white has a little bit more of the onion flavor. But in general, green onions are, pretty mild. And what we're using in this recipe, it calls for 8 green onions. So I've got 8 green onions here. I'm just going to chop up this one on camera. Now I'm going to put it in a bowl because we'll use it later. I'm going to go real quick and show you how to do this Napa cabbage too, just like the bok choy. I'm going to cut off that very bottom piece there because it looks like it's got a little bit of tough or weird, you know, doesn't look right. So if it doesn't look right, cut it off. The rest of it's still good. One bad Napa cabbage leaf doesn't spoil the whole bunch. Okay, so here's the leafy part. I would really probably do them all ahead of time, you know, and then we're going to just chop that up. I fold it and sort of chop it up. Go once that way, and then I'll turn it the other way too, and do it once like this. I'm going to make really small, I'm going to put this in a bowl over here. I'm going to make some really small egg rolls, because that's the way she was taught me to do it, and that's the way that I like to do it. And this is just a real hard centerpiece. It's almost like a celery. And what I do with this is I'll cut it down into real small, I like it probably in the range of my celery size, you know, real small little chunks. And that might not even be small enough. I might come over back at it again with a knife, because these egg rolls are so tiny. They're very small, and so your ingredients that go inside of them also have to be very small. So I am gonna give this one more chop, like so. Yeah, so like that. Like little squares, about the size of your celery, about the same size as your celery. And I'm going to get this into a bowl over here as well. Now I'm going through very quickly. Of course, we're going to do all of it. I'm just showing you a little bit of each one. And again, if you want to use look at how I did the garlic and ginger, you can look at that stir-fry video. I also wanted to show you that these water chestnuts, they, I think these are the sliced ones. Let me get this open, get this lid out of here. Yeah, but they're sliced already. But they're not, you know, and some of these brown ones I'm going to pick out. If there's any brown spots, pick those out and set them aside. But these are also too big to go into the egg roll. So these are going to also get a nice dice, same size, roughly. You want it to be roughly the same size as the celery and as the Napa cabbage stalks, the Napa cabbage stalks. The greens are a different story. Now the bean sprouts we'll just put in right straight from the can and they'll wilt. And you definitely can use fresh bean sprouts. I just happen to have these canned ones, so I'm going to use them. So even though these water chestnuts come sliced, and in a stir fry, I might use them just sliced how they are. For the egg rolls, you do want to get them down in these nice little pieces. Okay, I also have 2 packs of egg roll wraps or egg roll skins. I'm going to cut each of these in fourths. So that's how big our starting piece is going to be, a really small piece. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish up all this chopping, and then I'm going to come over to the stove and I'll show you how we cook it all down and put it all together. That will be the next step. I'll be back in a little bit. All right, so I've got all my ingredients chopped. It takes quite a while. And I've got my really large fry pan here. Of course, you could use a wok. That would probably be preferable. I used to use like a big stew pot like this pan over here, but I think in this case, well, we should be able to get by with just this. So I'm going to get my oil nice and hot. And the first thing that's going to go in, just like with the stir fry, is going to be the garlic and ginger. And for the same reason, we want to get it brown, but also we're going to have, that's going to get that nice flavoring on the oil. So what I've done is I've just coated the bottom of the pan with oil. And on the stir fry video, I tried that other oil, and I wasn't that happy with it. So I've gone back to canola oil. I might use that other oil in the salad or something, but I'm going to go back to my regular old canola oil, which is a texture and flavor pretty much like vegetable oil, but it's supposed to be more heart healthy. So I'm going to go ahead and get that garlic and ginger frying. In the meantime, I'm also going to make a stir fry sauce, but in this case it goes in way at the end. Okay, so how we do that, what I've got here is a 1/2 cup of soy sauce. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. And this is regular table iodized salt. 1 teaspoon of salt in the soy sauce, which is already so salty. Other dry ingredients, we're going to have 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. And also we're going to have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So I'm going to put my cornstarch in first. There's 1. 2. I'm going to move this, maybe I need to move this more in the range of where we're going. So I'm just combining it. I've had that 1/2 cup of soy sauce. I'm just piling it right in there. I'm going to get my brown sugar. because it's also going to require 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Oops, I just broke my rubber band, no biggie. So, there's 1 and 2. And I do kind of flatten them out. I don't want to use a heaping. On these dry ingredients, I'm going to use a flat. And also, what we're going to add to that, another, now this says 2 teaspoons of dried sherry, but I just have this rice cooking wine, and I'm just going to go ahead and use that. And I've even made it without that. I mean, you don't even need it. It won't be terribly missed if you don't put it in there. Okay, so that's all in there. So this is going to be our sauce that we're going to put in. Oh, this is cooking too high. Let me get this off the pan. I mean, off the thing. I smelled it starting to caught it just in the nick of time. Okay. So once again, I'm going to pull this because it did get a tiny bit overcooked, but it's still salvageable. I don't have to start from scratch. So I'm just over here talking away with my stir-fry sauce, and I missed the whole thing. So I'm going to pull this out of here. I was not keeping my eye on the, not the ball, but on the garlic and ginger in this case. Alright, so just like we did on the stir fry, I'm going to pull it out and we'll throw it back in later. Okay, so now I've got my nice hot oil. I did turn my heat down a little bit. I had it just cranked way too high. And I'm going to add all my hard vegetables. So these are my Napa cabbage stalks. Put those in there. And that was equal, the whole thing was equal to 1 pound on the Napa cabbage. Alright, so we got that in there. My finely diced water chestnuts. It says shredded celery, but I run it through the food processor and get nice little chunks. The original recipe called for shredded celery. My finely chopped green onions, 8 green onions. Put that in there. And I'm also going to put in my diced up pork now. And this pork also, I mean, I go way overboard on the garlic, as you know, but this pork also has a very strong garlic flavor because when I made the roast, I put a bunch of cloves of garlic right in the roast. Okay, so everything is in. The only things that have not been added is the greens from the Napa cabbage and my bean sprouts. But I want to, these are all the harder vegetables and the meat. I want to get these kind of cooking first and get cooked down a little bit before I add those in, because the bean sprouts and the greens from the Napa cabbage, they're just basically on a wilt. You know, they don't need to be cooked very long or softened or anything. Okay. Now I've got those in there, and I'm also going to give this a nice stir. Now it's pretty thick. It's got some pretty thick, because there's brown sugar and there's cornstarch. So this takes some doing. This takes some doing to get really broken up. And of course I'm using my fork. You could use a whisk, but I think the fork teeth really get in there. And I'm going to go and like smush it up against the wall to break up any pieces and really give it a nice stir around. And how you can tell, you just kind of feel along the bottom and make sure there's no more, because the dry ingredients do want to, like, I guess coagulate, is that the word? And they want to stick together and be on the bottom. So you want to get rid of that. You want it to be like a nice thick, like this, liquefied. And I am going to go ahead and just dump it all over everything now. Okay. So that's in there. I'm going to give this a nice stir around and coating. I'm going to cook it for a minute. I want these vegetables to get a little bit cooked. Not mush, not like if you were making it for a soup. I mean, you don't want it soft. You still want to maintain a little bit of that crunch. But I just do want them cooked down a little bit. So I'm going to keep stirring this around and get a nice coating of that soy sauce and wine and brown sugar and you know, all that mixture that we just poured in. I want to get a nice coating on everything. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to go ahead now and put in my drained 2 cans of drained bean sprouts. There's one. And one more. See, actually what I'm doing is I'm doubling the recipe because I'm going to make a bunch and freeze them, my usual routine. I'm going to put this garlic and ginger back in. But, I mean, you could do half of everything. So that would be, you know, 1 can of ginger, 1 can of, you know, bean sprouts, 1 can of water chestnuts. You know, just half everything in half. But I like to make a lot because this is kind of a big chore. I mean, I've spent quite a bit of time just chopping all these vegetables and everything. Okay, I gotta get this cranked up again so this cooks down. Now bean sprouts, even when they're fresh, they really shrink down a lot. But when they're cooked, even in a can, they do shrink down a little bit once they're heated and cooked. So it seems like they're overwhelming. It's like way too much bean sprouts, but it won't be once they're cooked in and they wilt down. And I'm gonna get a nice, you know, break those up. Because those egg rolls are so small, and you do want to make sure that when we go to make the egg rolls, that we really are getting a little bit of each, you know, all the different ingredients in the egg rolls. Okay, so I'm going to add in this is the Napa cabbage greens that I cut off. So they go in last because they don't need to cook as long because they're not as thick in texture, and they will. If you want to go put them all in at once, then you might end up with, you know, just really mush, and you don't want that because egg rolls definitely, you know, you want a little crunch in your egg roll. Okay, so I'm going to cook this around. I'll come back and show you it when it's all wilted down, what it's going to look like. And what I'm going to do is I'm making this a day ahead of time because it's just too much of a job to do it all in one day. If you have more than one person working on it, maybe, but I'm just all on my own making this dish today. So, and another thing about letting it sit overnight, I feel like then all the flavors kind of meld together a little bit better. You know, you get a little bit of, let them soak together and absorb all the sauce and all the different vegetables to kind of get their flavors all over each other. So I'm going to cook this down, and then I'm just going to turn it off the heat, let it cool, and it's going in the fridge overnight. And tomorrow, I'm going to roll the egg rolls and cook them and fry them and everything. But of course, in this video, it'll all be seamless. So I'll turn this back on. When they're done, I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And then we'll be tuning back in tomorrow for me, but in a few minutes for you to see the rolling and the frying of the egg rolls. Okay, I'm back, and I've got these vegetables nice and cooked. I'm going to bring it 2 hands. This is heavy. Bring it right in front of the camera. And that's what it's going to look like. This is the final. It's still smoking hot, so it's got to cool down. Even if you were going to make it right away, if you were not going to put it in the fridge overnight, you'd still want to let it cool down. So I'll be back, and we're going to show there's 2 more steps. There's the step of rolling the egg rolls, and then there's the step of frying and cooking the egg rolls. And I'm going to fry up the whole batch, and I freeze them. And I just cook them partially and freeze them. So we'll be back for the next step. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, bye. Here it is, day 2 of the pork egg roll extravaganza. So I am rusty at making these. I make these like once a year, so I make a big batch and freeze them. Normally I make them in 6-packs. I have actually 7 laid out here because I make 6 and I fry them half the way, and I freeze them. So I've cut these down. This is the original package. You can see that. And I've cut it into 4 groups, and I've laid out some piles here. So like most egg rolls are made from one whole sheet, and it's almost like a burrito where you roll it, tuck, and roll it. These are a little different. And again, I remembered her name. Her name was Annie. This was a lady that was my high school sweetheart, his boyfriend, his neighbor, Annie. And she was an organic gardener, and she taught me how to make these egg rolls and about composting and organic gardening. So for this first batch, I'm just going to do 1 batch, and I'm going to show you how to fry them, and then I'm going to be working on this all day. But anyways, I pulled out 7 in this case, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. Because I'm going to do my normal batch of 6, and then I'm going to cook 1 to full all the way. So of course, wash your hands, and then what I'm doing here is I'm getting a teaspoon. You know, I don't know that this is a you know, a teaspoon like you stir your coffee with. I don't know if it's an actual teaspoon, you know, measurement. And I'm just going to set them on here. I mean, I'm trying to get some of that liquid off, but I'm just going to set it on there, and I'm actually I'm wanting that liquid to kind of seep out. And so I'm going to do this to all 7. Get a nice right in the middle there. And a lot of people use like an egg wash to seal the egg rolls up, but I just use the liquid from the stuff. And just put it in. Okay, so I've got my 7. And then I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to take my fingers and rub it around. I'm not sure which ones are visible. Just do one of these middle ones to start with. See, and I'm just going to get some of that liquid that is already on there. It also, because these are like stiff, what that does is sort of softens them. Now, you don't want a whole too much crazy liquid, because if you have too much, when it hits that oil, it's going to be like, you know, not a good thing. It'll rip it right open. So I'm just going around and getting this like damp. Okay, this one's ready. So just get it damp for a second. Then you take it, it's almost, and then you fold corner to corner. First corner over and kind of roll it. Wrap the second corner over like that. Then fold your ends in. This one broke, but I think it's still going to be okay. And like that. And it will stick shut. See if it's broken the back, but I think I can kind of paste it. It will stick shut. I'm going to put actually a paper towel, so if there is any liquid, that paper towel is going to soak it up. Okay, let's do another one. I needed that paper towel to wipe my table up, but I'll just use a napkin. Okay, because I want to keep my table pretty dry. I'm going to wipe it down in between each thing. So here's my little scoop in the middle. Roll one end over. Roll the other end over. Fold and seal. And this, I could already see a ton of liquid, so I'm just going to dump it in the bowl before I finish. And fold and seal. That's 2. Okay, another one. Scoop it in there. A dollop of egg roll filling. And you know, you could definitely make this vegetarian too. Like how I would do it, instead of pork, I would use a mushroom. And I think you're going to end up with a very similar flavor that way. I would use diced, you could use Asian mushrooms, really any kind of mushroom that you wanted. And I think it's going to, you get a real close, I think pork and mushroom is pretty close on a swap out kind of a thing. Okay, so there we go again, and again, and flip, and flip. Flip and seal. Press down, make sure that it's sealed, because you don't, any cracks, it's going to cause a big problem when you go to fry them, because you're going to have liquid everywhere. Okay, same thing. Roll, roll, flip and seal, flip and seal. Make sure it's sealed. Okay, one more. This one's a little dry, so I might need to take a little bit of liquid from the bowl. Okay, roll, roll, tuck, flip and seal, turn, flip and seal. Okay, so one more to go. Over here. Wet. This isn't wet either. So if you don't wet it, that's how it's going to break. It needs to be a little bit damp so it's pliable. Roll, roll. And that also causes the, you know, that's what you're using to seal it. The liquid holds, like it stick together. There's a little extra juice, dumped it in the bowl, flip, and seal. Okay, so here's my first batch of egg rolls ready to fry. I'll meet you over at the stove, and we're going to fry up one batch. Okay, here I am over at the stove with my first batch of egg rolls. Normally I would do a 6-pack, but I'm going to do a 7, because I'm going to cook one completely. And I'm just laying them down. I'm laying them down fold side down into the grease. I've got some hot oil. Now, this I want to do a little bit more than coat the bottom of the pan. I want to have it, you know, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. Like a small puddle. Now, I have, years ago I tried, it's better to fry these in a pan. Years ago I tried to make these in a deep fryer. I was working at a club downtown, and I wanted to turn on my coworkers. I was, I'll bring in some egg rolls. So I brought in some egg rolls. These, when we put them in the deep fryer, and they just pretty much disintegrated. You know, that oil was too much for it to handle. It just ripped it apart. So they're delicate. You've got to just kind of, gently fry them in the oil. And as I said, I only just do a little bit on each side. I do not do cook them all the way because I'm going to freeze them. And I've been doing this for so many years, since a long time. And this works out really good. So I go through all this like one time a year, and I make a big batch. I put them in 6 in a batch. Once I've done that, I put them on a paper plate with paper towels to drain on both sides, pat them dry. And then after they cool, I just put them in a regular sandwich baggie, tie it in a knot, and then I put them all in a big bag. And then you just pull out one of those bags and thaw it and fry it the rest of the way to completion. Because we're really kind of only frying them halfway this first time. Just so they're going to not be soft and get ripped apart, so they're going to hold together for the freezing. That's not ready yet. A little bit more than that. That was a little bit too, not quite. It's got to have just a little, if you're going to freeze them, you're going to have just a little bit of a brown to them. Really, it's kind of like when it gets hard. It's kind of like when the egg roll wrap gets hard, then you know it's ready. I'm going to say okay on that. I'm getting splattered with grease too. That's another fun thing about cooking these. I'm going to have little grease burns all over my arms by the time this is done. But ow, I think it's worth it. I just got a bad one then. There, that's perfect. This one is perfectly for the freezing. That's the perfect amount of brownness. That one is actually even a little too much. This will probably be the one I'll cook all the way. Well, I'll show you when they're really done. It's going to take a couple minutes on the hot oil. These are so tasty, and how I like to serve them is with some sweet and sour sauce or duck sauce, and just with some duck dipping sauce, and really, really, really good. This is most of the time you see egg rolls that are larger. You usually don't see them this size, so that's a little different about it. And usually I'm not a big shrimp fan. It seems like any kind of egg roll that you would buy like pre-made, or there's always shrimp in it, and I don't like shrimp. And I don't want to bite into shrimp in my egg roll. So that's why I started making these too, just because I don't like shrimp. I didn't want any shrimp in my egg roll. Okay, so really, really good, really tasty, healthy, lots of vegetables. I mean, I know there's salt because of the soy sauce and whatnot, but really are good and healthy. Good way to get kids to eat vegetables again too. That's another thing. And like I said before, if you need to, you could definitely swap out mushrooms for pork if you're vegetarian. And I think it would be, it wouldn't hurt the recipe one bit. I think it would be just as tasty, maybe even a little more. We used to make a chicken egg roll, and we used to use these dried Asian mushrooms, and they turned out really good with those. So that could be an option, or just some diced up portobellos, I think, even diced into nice little squares, and I think that would be good. So these are good to go for the freezing. I think this batch is good to go. I'm going to leave this one in here. I'll try to bring it up here so you can really see. So just real light, So these are going to freeze up real nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let these dry out. Here's our finished product. Well, finished for freezing. Just barely lightly browned. I'm go ahead and cooking this other one to full so you can really see how it should look. And then I've just got regular old fold top sandwich bags. No Ziplocs or anything. Just regular, these kind. And they're too hot to put in there now, obviously, but once they've cooled, I put them in here, and then I squeeze all the air out, and then I tie the end in a knot, and I put them all in a bag and freeze them. And then when you take them out of the freezer, you pull them out, and I just set them out on a plate like this to thaw. Set them out on a plate like this to thaw when you're taking them out from freezing. And then once they thaw, you just, continue to fry them in the grease for less time. It just takes a couple of minutes on each side. to get them completely brown. And then I just put them back on the same, the same plate that I thawed them on. I put it in to drain the grease on again at the end. And these are delicious. There's no other egg rolls like this. This is straight from, like I said, that lady Annie, and she was Asian and came to America, immigrated. And there's nothing else like it. I'm going to take a little break, and I'm going to be back when this is done. I'll show you the finished product of the done egg roll. Alright, so I'm back, and I've cooked this one completely the whole way. And as you can see, it's much darker brown. It's got a little bit of a crispy crunch to it. Let this cool. Don't eat it right out of the oil. It's really hot inside. So here's the ones that are not quite, cooked all the way that I'll be freezing. And here's the one that's cooked all the way that you can eat now. Like I said, a little bit of duck sauce or mustard if you like, or just straight. I mean, they're just so tasty and awesome. All right. Traditional, authentic pork egg rolls. Enjoy.